welcome back everyone to the second session of this introduction to Buddhism based on this book, Essence of the Path to Enlightenment by Geshe Loden. So, as I mentioned last week, the format is 2 meditations and then start off with meditation, then talk, then finish with meditation and any questions. So we'll start off with a meditation. But for anyone who's new, I'll just mention the importance that's attributed to motivation. In Buddhism, motivation is regarded as key to getting the result we want. So, and you can be doing the same activity, but if your motivation is different, then the outcome is very often different. So, for example, two, maybe 3 people walking up Sydney Road, Jane, Dwayne, and Wayne, and they're all walking up Sydney Road, and they're all doing exactly the same. They're walking in unison. They're triplets. They're in sync, completely in sync, and they're doing left foot, right foot, left foot, right foot, walking up Sydney Road. But Dwayne's intention is to get as far as Coburg and then go into the hotel and get completely blind drunk. Whereas, was that Wayne or Dwayne? I can't remember. But anyway, the other one, Wayne, is his motivation is to walk to Sydney. But Jane's motivation is to walk up here to the peaceful land of joy and find out about her Buddha nature, her enlightened potential. So each step for Dwayne becomes a cause of him becoming blind drunk, whereas each step for Wayne becomes a cause of him getting to Sydney and seeing the sights. And each step for Jane becomes a cause for her finding out about what's called her Buddha nature or her potential for enlightenment. So that's a bit of an example of how an action is, the outcome of the action in physical terms is determined by the motivation and to some degree. So the same in Buddhism. So we'll try and when we're meditating, and ideally in any activities we engage in, and we try and make more extensive motivation. So rather than just 10 minutes of relaxation, that's our motivation for a meditation, we might extend that out and think, through cultivating my peace, my tranquility, my patience, my compassion, and step by step, I'll enjoy peace, etc., through my life and through the future, whatever the future holds, future rebirths, and so on. We can extend even further and say, may this become a cause of my own enlightenment. So that's really one's fullest potential. We're going to what that means a bit further in the course. But you're then embracing your fullest potential in whatever little action you're doing. And then extending even further this is the Bodhisattva ideal, or the Bodhisattva motivation, is that through developing my potential of mind and all of these enlightened qualities, will I be able to help alleviate the suffering of all living beings. So then it becomes this extraordinary, vast, potent, powerful motivation, and even just focusing on your breath at that point is a enormously powerful meditation just through that motivation. So it's the motivation is for what's called the Great Scope, or the Mahayana path, the path that actually takes you directly to enlightenment, then motivation is key. It's the entrance way to the path. There's no way to get to enlightenment without developing that motivation. So we try anyway. It's some of these to people who may be new, maybe foreign concept, but the idea is to just extend out a bit with our intention for the meditations. So we start off sitting again in meditation posture, and again, like last week, we sit reasonably straight, whether we're on a cushion or in a chair, and right hand and left hand, thumbs meeting in the gesture of concentration, and body relaxed. That's what most important, and comfortable. Head very slightly forward. Eyes can be open and unfocused, slightly open or closed. So again, we'll release any tension. So letting go of any preoccupations we might have, any thoughts going round and round and round, any worries, any memories of the past, letting go of all of that. Any anxiety, we just release it. And it can be helpful releasing it with the out breath. So we just feel as you breathe out and let go of any worries and any unhappiness, any physical tension in your body, and any mental tension or preoccupation. With your out breath, each time you breathe out, feel like you're releasing that tension. And just bringing your attention to the breath, the mere sensation of the breath as it enters and leaves your body, either the sensation of the nostrils, the flow of the air, or the sensation in your tummy, in the abdomen. And determine that any other thoughts or feelings or sensation are a mere distraction from your meditation. And coming back to the breath. if distractions arise, just note them and gently bring the mind back. Don't get involved with them. Don't reject them and push them away, no matter what they are. You just note a distraction from the object, the sensation of the breath. And we develop our motivation for this meditation session, thinking through calming the mind and cultivating my potential for peace and for happiness. May it become a cause for the peace of nirvana liberation and full enlightenment. And so may it become a cause to be of benefit to all living beings. And Geshe-Acharya Thupten Lodin, many times he said, if you want happiness, you must create the causes of happiness. If you want to be free of suffering, you must abandon the causes of suffering. So now we practice a visualization meditation. And first of all, we focus just on the out-breath and visualize as you breathe out. You breathe out black light, dark impurities, and these are in the nature of all your suffering, any unhappiness, any sickness or disease, physical tension, physical injury, or bad memories and so on. And visualize with each out-breath this dark smoke or impurities leaves your body and disappears into the universe, disappears into space. Again, focusing just on the out-breath. And in your mind's eye, see clearly and feel clear. You can feel it happening with the breath. And you're letting go of any unhappiness you have, any suffering, any sickness, any bad memories of when you've suffered in the past or been harmed, or bad memories of harming others. Letting go of any anger and resentment, any depression, loneliness, worries, all causes of suffering. And we can enjoy releasing these, letting them go, disappearing into the universe in the form of black light. Till eventually we feel we're completely free of negativity and suffering. And focusing on the in-breath, and visualize as you breathe in. You breathe in from the universe, or if you like, from holy beings within the universe. You breathe in beautiful, peaceful, radiant white light. It fills your mind and fills your body. It's in the nature of energy, vitality, good health, love and compassion, peacefulness and wisdom. So visualize breathing this in, filling your body, filling your mind. The more clearly you can see this in your meditation, the more clearly you can imagine it, then the more benefit, the sense that this is actually happening. eventually you feel your body is now in the nature of radiant, peaceful white light, no longer solid and heavy or prone to disease. You have an energized, light-natured body. We can finish the meditation. So for people who weren't here last week, this course is based on this book, Essence of the Path to Enlightenment, which is written by Geshe Acharya Thupten Lodin, our spiritual head, who passed away in 2011. And it's the wisdom of the ages in a nutshell, the wisdom of the last 2,500 years of Buddhist masters, back to the Buddha, all the way to Geshe-la. So the very practical parts of the Buddha's teachings presented in sequential order. So today, and it's regarded as a complete path. So a lot of meditation you see around today, like mindfulness or different visualization techniques, often they're very little sections taken out of the Buddhist canon, the Buddhist teachings, but they're not regarded as they're very useful. You know, for example, mindfulness is very useful to lots and lots of people. It's become super popular, but it's not a complete path to enlightenment. So the path to enlightenment is regarded as a collection of all the teachings we need. For example, how do I deal with really difficult conditions, you know? For example, the war in Ukraine. How would you deal if someone's bombing your city? Or what can, apart from the practical things, what can you do with your mind to do your best in that situation? So there's a whole section of teachings on transforming adverse conditions into the path to enlightenment, how to use any difficulty to actually use it in one's spiritual path and so on. So yeah, it's regarded as a complete path to enlightenment. And the section we're going to look at today is the one on life. It's just called Life, the chapter beginning on page 27. And yeah, life. So I wanted to ask, first of all, the question, what is life? So there's different definitions. I had a bit of a Google about what is life. And the dictionary said it's a state of ceaseless change and functional activity peculiar to organized plant and animal matter. So that's a sort of biology definition, not very heartwarming, but yeah. And another definition I saw there is life is a sexually transmitted disease with no known cure that always ends in death. So that's not too inspiring either. So in Buddhism, I'm not sure what the Buddhist definition of life, but there's a very strong distinction between animal and plant in Buddhism, like between what's called sentient life. So that animals have, and humans have awareness, they have consciousness, they have experience, which is the sort of, that's the thing that matters. And that each individual has a continuum of that, and each individual seeking happiness and so on. So there's a very big distinction between animals and plants in Buddhism. So life generally is associated with that sentience, with that consciousness or awareness that we have. So what are ordinary life philosophies, like in the office or you know, people you meet, what's your sort of normal life philosophies? We don't tend to think about life that much. Often it's when something dramatic happens, then we might think about life, or if our life's threatened. But sort of normal life philosophies, and I know one quite good one is it beats the alternative. Um, yeah, but another quite common one is enjoy it while you can. Just enjoy life. That's the purpose, is enjoy life. And then yeah, and particularly like I'm getting a bit long in the tooth now, but when you ask people, you know, young people in the office what they did at the weekend, it's just jam packed with these social activities. You know, like I went out to dinner with my friends, then next day we went to a movie, we went here, we did this, and it's really crammed with activities. And as you get older, most people tend to slow down a bit. And I asked another guy in the office, "What did you do?" I helped my mum a bit, and I didn't really do anything else all weekend. You know, so that's sort of pursuit of enjoyment. But from Buddhist viewpoint, that pursuit of enjoyment's not sufficient to lead a meaningful life or a fulfilling life. And there's one quote from Shantideva. He said, "Whatever I enjoy shall become a memory. Whatever has passed will not be seen again." So no matter what we enjoy, it's gone. You know, there's nothing left in our hand. I guess you used to say empty hand. You can go to death with an empty hand. You've had lots of enjoyment. But right there and then, what have you got left? What are your resources? Thanks, Money. What are your resources? Just trying to enjoy is not enough. So another philosophy is sort of who knows, who cares. Just don't think about it. Just get on and plod on with whatever your routine is. No one knows, so don't think about it. And another one is same different day. Same stuff, different day. Some people don't like the excrement word. So yeah, that's another sort of quite common attitude towards life. So yeah, and another good one is take it as it comes. So whatever appears, don't worry about it, just get on with it, which is quite sort of quite a good philosophy, I suppose. But I'm going to read from page 27 here, because from Buddhist viewpoint, none of those life philosophies are sufficient to realize our potential, to lead a meaningful life, and to be of most benefit to ourselves and others. So I'll read from page 27, the start of the chapter. It says, "Life, our most precious possession, is a finite experience. While we have life, we must treat it at all times with reverence and respect, and strongly appreciate the possibilities life offers us. The precious gift of life must be made meaningful and used to bring about the greatest possible benefit." Lama Tsongkhapa, who's the founder of this tradition of Tibetan Buddhism, he said, "The human form at peace with itself is more precious than the rarest gem. Cherish your body. It is yours this one time only. The human body is one with difficulty and is easy to lose. All worldly things are brief, like lightning in the sky. And you must know this life as the tiny splash of a raindrop, a thing of beauty that disappears even as it comes into being. Therefore set your goal and make use of every day and night to achieve it." So that's sort of a key, some of the key aspects there is that life's very fragile, but it's extremely precious. This life we have is said to be very rare and very precious. And we'll go into the reasons in a minute. Yeah, so we should hold it like the most precious jewel, normally we think about my life, oh yeah, same old, same old. But ideally, we're regarding this as the most precious jewel. That really can far more benefit than any jewel could ever give us. You know, the most precious treasure. And to do that, we need to sort of get some familiarity with the potential of the mind. What can we actually do with our life? So even animals tend to think life is very precious. There's an instinctual urge to protect your life. Like, I don't know if you've heard of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. It's quite a thing of psychology where the most fundamental needs that we look after are most important is our, things like food and shelter, survival. And then as you go up, there's more sort of emotional needs and spiritual needs. But down at the bottom, the fundamental things we sort of try to do is keep ourselves alive. So, and you see that with animals, animals protect their lives. They run for their lives. Even a slater, like a little woodlouse, if you disturb it, it'll run. Or if it feels really threatened, if you put your finger near it, it might curl up in a ball. So it's got this instinctual urge to protect its life. So, yeah. So we need to appreciate our life, otherwise we waste it. And he said gratitude is, I think, in psychology today, it's highly recognized that gratitude is a really useful quality, as opposed to complaining about our lives, what we haven't got, having gratitude about what we have got, and it establishes a much happier life when we actually make use of our situation. So we don't want to waste our life, even with ordinary. In the physical world, we might waste things if we don't recognize their qualities, or if we don't qualities they have, or if we don't recognize their potential, which is the qualities that they can develop. So, for example, a smartphone. If you don't realize what that is, you might think it's just a phone. It's just a phone. So whenever you go on holiday, you pack, in your huge suitcase, you pack your calendar, you pack your radio, your television. What else does this thing do? Your torch. And so it's got you end up with about 20 different things, your notebook and so on and so on. And you don't realize, you don't see the qualities that thing has. Or if you've got a car with, what's it called? Speed control. What's it called? Cruise control. But you never realize that, and you spend all the time foot up, foot down, keep an eye on the speed, foot up, foot down, because you don't recognize the qualities it has. So in the physical world, that's the case. We don't use that thing as we could. But also with regards to the potential, if we don't see the potential of things, then we don't utilize them. You might come across a dried mango stone, and you don't realize this is the cause of a seedling, that's the cause of a mango tree that can then produce, 500 mangoes every year and keep you in mangoes forever. So you don't see the potential there. You've got no idea. It's just a sort of dry bit of rubbish. So and then even things we do recognize, we tend to make them ordinary. So, we get bored with things. So if you go to a supermarket, like say a smaller supermarket, and it hasn't got 50 varieties of cereal, it's only got 20 varieties of cereal, and it hasn't got your honey macadamia drizzled nut cluster crunch, blah blah, then you think, oh, this is a rubbish supermarket. Or if you go in a garden and you're bored with your garden, but you don't realise it's got agapanthus that came from South Africa, it's got roses that were hybridised, roses were taken from China and Northern Europe, North America, hybridised, 200 years spent coming up with that rose in your garden. Like all these things that 200 years ago or 100 years ago would seem extraordinary, like our boring old phone or our boring old car. They're completely remarkable with even the life of the richest person 100 years ago. So in that, if we compare back, we feel wealthy. We feel, gee, this is remarkable. But normally we compare to what other people have got, or we just get bored with what we've got. So it's sort of coming from the mind, that making things mundane. So same with life. From Buddhist viewpoint, it's the same with life. Like we'd be really upset if we won the lottery, won 20 million, and then we just squandered it, which quite a few lottery winners do, apparently. Then afterwards you regret it. And life's far more precious than any lottery win. So this life. So the same with life, we can not recognize what we do have. So things like clean running water. How often do you turn on a tap and see this sort of pristine, clean, healthy water just at the turn of a wrist turn and think, gee, this is incredible? We don't normally, do we? You just turn it on, wash your face, gone. So we don't respect that. Or that we've got, a secure, completely damp-free house, say, Or we're living in a society where we're not being threatened by the government or a dictatorship to never ask questions, or, only do these sorts of things, don't do these sorts of things. So we've got that freedom. So again, that's a remarkable thing, and we can see it's been threatened in the world these days. There's a lot of talk about that. So on top of that, we don't recognize our potential. So that's quite a big subject in Buddhism. It's called the pure nature of our mind, or our Buddha nature, our Buddha potential, our Tathagata essence. And Geshe Charitamrita Lodin wrote an entire book on Buddha potential, and it draws from originally the Buddha 2,500 years ago taught about this Buddha nature that we all have in the Tathagata Essence Sutra. And the Maitreya Buddha, which is the painting nearest to me over in that direction, that's Maitreya Buddha, the Buddha of love. He gave a lot of teachings, 5 treatises where he expounded on Buddha nature. So because we don't see our Buddha potential, we're like someone with a mango seed. You don't know what it is, like our own minds. This ability of mind, this nature of clarity and awareness. This is an extraordinary thing. We don't know what it is, and we don't know what it can become. Until we start meditating and looking at mind, we don't even notice that. We just notice what appears to mind, this thought, that thing, but we don't ever look at mind itself. So we don't see that potential. So Maitreya Buddha he said we're like a family, a very poor family, living in poverty, struggling to survive, and under their kitchen floor, under their dirt floor, there's a great treasure chest full of gold and diamonds, and if they knew, it takes them out of their poverty forever. In the same way, Maitreya said, we're like that with our own innermost nature. We don't recognize it, but it's actually the source of all the treasures of enlightenment arises from it. And that only if a clairvoyant came along, or someone with a machine that can x-ray the ground, can that poor family know it's there, dig it up, and their problem sorted. So the obscuring ground hasn't changed. The treasure is still, diamonds don't change, gold doesn't change. In the same way, our obscuration to our pure nature of mind doesn't change that nature. It's still completely pure. So no matter how upset we get, how grumpy, how depressed, how much alcohol we drink, whatever we do, how much harm we've done to others, according to the Buddha and this great lineage of masters, our own very fundamental nature is completely pure, unsullied. So we've accumulated negative karma, but the nature of mind hasn't changed. It's clarity, and it knows. That's the nature of mind. So then if we do recognize that potential, then step by step it said we can nurture. My small compassion, step by step, can nurture, can become a bodhisattva's compassion, can become a Buddha's compassion. My small patience, step by step, when we nurture it, it becomes a Buddha's patience. My small concentration, when I'm trying to focus on the breath, if I step by step nurture it, then it becomes better, until it becomes perfection of concentration. So the framework trying to get you to get a sense of is that it's not just this life. So we'll nurture our mind this life, but generally it's regarded as enlightenments. It can be quite a long path. If you're lucky, it could be very quick. But for most of us, it requires a lot of purification and a lot of development of these positive qualities. So from Buddhist view, maybe I'm talking too long. 216. So there's this sense of a mental continuum of a mind stream, and I talked about it last week. And I can't remember if I mentioned one of the reasons for believing in that is that generally everything in the world is a product. It's produced by various causes coming together. So an omelette's a product of egg and milk, This microphone's got steel and plastic all aggregated together. So with the mind is, I should say that generally the product, whatever it is, the main cause is similar in nature to the thing. So an omelette, you can't make an omelette by getting a house brick and a Michael Jackson CD, put them together, you don't get an omelette. It'll be quite a crunchy omelette. You can't make an omelette. So to make an omelette, the cause has to be similar. So milk and eggs. To make a glass table, you need glass. To make a wooden table, the main cause has to be wood. And so on. Metal table, main cause is metal. It's generally the case. The main cause of things is similar in nature. So when you look at your mind, what is similar in nature to awareness? So awareness is completely unique. There's nothing in the world like mind, consciousness, experience, awareness. What could you put together to make awareness? So I'm saying from Buddhist view, the main cause of awareness is the previous moment. The secondary causes, there's other causes of awareness, like your brain is one, your eyes, your ears, The environment at the moment, we're aware of this environment. They're all causes of this moment of awareness. But the main cause is the previous moment of consciousness. And that you can't make consciousness consciousness is non-physical. You can't just get electrochemical activity and generate consciousness. And neuroscience has never shown, like normally people say the mind and they think the brain. And the brain's very closely linked to the mind. Like you can identify different functions of the brain will support different awarenesses or different feelings and so on. But that the main cause of awareness is a previous moment. So you can't make consciousness out of nothing. Neuroscience has never come up with as far as I know, a cogent explanation of how does electrochemical activity in the brain make this incredible thing called experience or awareness. You know, computer has all this electrical activity, it doesn't know anything. It can process tons of information. No one feels they're being cruel when they don't feel like they're killing a computer when you turn it on. You sort of instinctually know it's not a sentient being. So anyway, the point I'm getting to is if this moment of consciousness had to have a previous moment, and that had to have a previous moment, then back to the beginning of this life, how did the sperm and egg generate consciousness? And from Buddhist viewpoint, your mind entered the sperm and egg when they came together. Then your mind stream, or the previous moment of awareness, entered. So from that viewpoint, you are beginningless. There is no beginning to your stream of awareness. And you've had countless lives, and you've just about met everyone there is on the planet. You have. You've had we're infinitely more complex than we think. So it's sort of an interesting, but that is a very interesting area, because it gets you a bit of a sense of how can I, then after this life, everything I've done in this life is not wasted. I can cultivate my mind, and I'm cultivating my Buddha nature, and it's going to lead to benefit in future. So yeah. Anyway, so talking about this life. It said we've got, it's called the perfect human rebirth. We've got an optimal human rebirth. So we've got an extraordinary life. It's said to be rare and precious. And the reason it's extraordinary is you've got to compare it with other situations that aren't so good. So in Quantum Enlightenment, it talks about the 8 freedoms and the 10 endowments. So we're free from a lot of suffering states that prevent you, or limited states that prevent you developing. So we're freed in, the Buddha taught there are many different realms of existence, like the universe is limitless, and there's many different realms. And there's things from heaven to hell. And but the only two that we know about is the animal realm and the human realm. They're the ones we can see. But there's various different spirit realms. There's sort of god realms, demigod realms. There's what's called hungry ghost realms, and then hellish experiences. And you can take this as, like it's very faith-based. You can take it as gospel. Yes, there are these realms from heaven to hell. Or you can take it as a description of, even amongst human experience, you can see some humans have hellish experiences. People with terrible spinal injury just have unbelievable pain. People with mental psychosis or dementia. Like I work in a hospital, and you occasionally hear someone just screaming for help in the room. And the nurse goes in, and then they're shouted at for going in, and then as soon as they're in, are gone, they're screaming for help, with a dementia, like a really sort of full-on suffering experience. Or we can have very destitute. As a human being, you can be like, it's called the hungry ghost realms. You can be destitute. So in some cities in Ukraine now, there's no supplies getting in. Everything's getting bombed. People are, desperate for water, desperate for food, desperate for medicine. Or with climate change across a whole band across Africa is getting more and more dry. So human beings can have these destitute, starvation type experiences. Then on top of that, there's the animal realm, which we can see. And you can see animals, anyone who's had a pet cat or a dog, you can see your animal has emotions. You know when your dog is happy. You know when it's feeling guilty, it's sort of doing this, Or you know when it's hurt, it yelps. And you can see it with cats and so on. So animals, anyone who's lived with an animal, like academics can say, oh, there's no proof animals have any experience at all, blah, 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 blah. But anyone who's lived with them, any kid who's lived with them knows instinctually these animals are experiencing very similar, or some sort of similarity to my experience of happiness, of sadness, of pain, so on. So trouble with the animal realms is no control. Like you imagine your life, like you go to the beach and feed the seagulls. You imagine your life, as soon as you saw food, you had to just grab it and stuff it down. Didn't matter whether you're hungry or not hungry. You've just got to grab that food and stuff it down as fast as you can. And you've got no store of food. There's no security of food. There's no security of shelter. You imagine that. As soon as you saw, like if you saw a human behaving like that, you think, what in the world is wrong with that person? The seagull just has to do it. Otherwise, you hesitate a second, 10 other seagulls grab it. So animal experience is very different to human. You're often out in the rain, you're out in the cold, you're out in the heat. You haven't got the intelligence to change your environment, to protect yourself, and so on. So pretty rough. Humans use you, Like in Australia, I can't remember, something like every year, something like 2 million lamb, 2 million cows killed for meat, like something like 60 million chickens. I can't remember the figures, but it's huge, and so on. And then, so then there's also said to be God realms, demigod realms, very good conditions, but the demigods are sort of ambitious and always fighting and jealous. And then God realms, where the gods have these wonderful experiences in life, but there's no motivation to practice Dharma or look at the mind because they're just blissed out. So some humans have that sort of experience. They've got everything they could want, but it can be just a bit of a waste of a life. So those are called the 8 freedoms. But on top of that, there's freedom from mental impairment, like a brain injury, or that prevents you really being able to meditate and get to know your life and potential. Freedom from wrong view. That's said to be wrong view is one of the worst things, like the view that our mind is just the brain, or the end of this life, that's it, or it can be a view you've picked up from society, from your family, from your upbringing. Some people have the view, some cultures, that men should be tough and sort of a bit aggressive. It's good to be aggressive and sort of stake your claim, stake your territory, be a bit violent, and that's a real man. So from Buddhist viewpoint, that's a wrong view. It's a cause of suffering, cause of no peace. So yeah, we can rejoice. We're free of all that with our current human. On top of that, we've got this human form. We're in a wealthy society. We're in a free society. It's a remarkable thing. If you want to study Buddhism, you can study Buddhism. If you want to study Christianity, you can study Christianity. It's completely free. No one's trying to force you. No one's, So we can study what we want. And we can express ourselves how we want, which is a remarkable thing. And we're living in a time when these extraordinary teachings are still available. Like the Buddha in this eon, the Buddha's taught, Lord Jesus Christ has taught. The teachings are available. Because these things don't come to us naturally. Teachings on the nature of the mind and enlightened potential and developing compassion for all living beings. They don't just naturally occur to us. It's only really through encountering teachings then we can nurture our mind. So yeah, these are some of the things called the 10 endowments, and also we naturally have a curiosity to look at the mind, to pursue happiness. So we've got either a curiosity or some faith, or that's regarded as a remarkable thing. Most people don't have that. So then our life becomes what's called a perfect human rebirth. It's actually the best possible situation. We experience suffering, but it's not overwhelming. So the suffering is just enough to motivate us to think, how can I overcome suffering? How can I find a path free of suffering? So the suffering we experience in our life is useful. It drives us towards enlightenment, towards liberation, towards renouncing suffering and its causes. So yeah, it's called perfect human rebirth. And again, I'm going too slow. So from that point of view, it's very important that we need to recognize my life is rare, it's more precious than the most precious jewel. And we don't want to waste it. We don't want to deceive ourselves. So and we can deceive ourselves by just focusing on short term, just getting pleasure, go to the footy, go to the restaurant, just whatever makes me happy in the here and now. From Buddhist viewpoint, that's a bit deceptive, because when you get to the end of your life, I don't know if anyone's ever felt their life is about to end. I had it one time on an aircraft, and it is such a sobering experience. There was a huge amount of fuel coming out the wing, and I felt certain I was going to die. It's the only time in my life I've felt that. And it is such a sobering experience. Like, I just left the family and it was all emotional, and then suddenly, this is it. This is the end of me, And boy, then you really think, well, what resources have I got? Everything I've enjoyed, that's in the past. That's not supporting me now. That's gone. What have I got within me to take me to a good future? So yeah, it's a real wake up to have that. So lots of people, when they're diagnosed with cancer or a life-threatening thing, then it realigns their value. So yeah, just pursuing what's called the 8 worldly dharmas, like pursuing money and wealth, pursuing fame or reputation, popularity, pursuing relationships. Just pursuing that in life is not sufficient if you've got a perfect human rebirth. It's not setting ourselves up. It's good to have a happy life, but just seeking pleasure. So as I said, Shanti Davis said, whatever I enjoy shall become a memory. Whatever has passed will not be seen again. It's a real classic verse, that one. To sort of cut through our infatuation with seeking pleasure. And another way we waste, from Buddhist viewpoint, another way we waste our life is to invest too much in delusion. Spend my whole life feeling hard done by. Spend my whole life worrying. Spend my whole life feeling depressed, or feeling angry or resentful or whatever it is, feeling lonely. That's a way of wasting our life. From Buddhist viewpoint, you're not cultivating your Buddha nature. A quote from Engaging in the Path to Enlightenment, page 28. It says, Nagarjuna, letter to a friend, he who uses a gold vessel embellished with jewels to hold filthy vomit is stupid. Even more stupid is the one who, though born as human, engages in evil deeds. So if you had this really beautiful vase, just shining, gleaming, made from gold, embedded with diamonds, and then you just use it as your bucket to vomit in, or your potty at night to poo in or pee in, then you think that's a bit of a waste, But our life is like, we can think of ourselves as like a precious casket, a vessel, gleaming, more precious than this gleaming golden vessel. Your human form is more precious than that. If we just use it to harm others, shout at others, get upset, get stressed, get worried, then Nagarjuna is saying this is like just filling a gold vase with feces. It's not the best use. So we don't want to get to the point. A good way of evaluating life is to imagine you've had some bad news from the doctor and he said, please sit down. You've only got 2 months to live. You've got a terrible brain tumour. You've got a liver cancer, whatever. So at that point, how do our values change, And so the ordinary things at that point are we're not so infatuated with them. If I'm being told I'm going to die next week, going to the footy or going with mates and just drinking. You're thinking, well, I've only got a week, or listening to music, watching a couple of movies. I've only got a week. That's another day gone. What am I going to be left with? So I know a long time ago I used to work in theatre, operating theatre, and picking up someone who was having open heart surgery. And he was aware he could die on the operating table. And he said to me, it's the things you've done for the other bloke that really count at this time. Not how much work he'd done, and not how many German cars he'd possessed or any of that stuff, not how many movies he'd watched. But what mattered to him is what he'd done for other people. And what's the time? Yeah, okay. So the value of life is the actual value of life. The Buddha demonstrated in his life, because he was born a prince in a kingdom, and he had everything you could enjoy. He had 3 palaces, like a summer palace, a winter palace, and I'm not sure the other, I think it was a rainy season palace. He had beautiful people around, musicians, cooks, most delicious foods. But he said he became restless. And when he experienced, he saw someone dying, he saw someone very elderly and decrepit, he saw someone very sick, and he saw someone being born. Then he realized all these pleasures, they can't support me. And he asked the king, the king said, stay, and King Shuddadana said, stay and become king. And he said, I will, if you can guarantee I won't get sick, I won't get old, I won't die, and I won't become unhappy. And the king knew he couldn't guarantee any of those things. So those are the things in Buddhism that are sort of quite useful to focus on, because then they point us at our deeper purpose in life. So Geshe said, well, in terms of what is of actual value, Geshe Charitabdin, he often said, calm down, settle down and relax. Everything's okay. If you practice Dharma, if you help others, if you support others, and if you look after others, then your life is useful, worthwhile, and meaningful. So those two things, practicing Dharma, cultivating your enlightened potential, and supporting others in life, from Buddhist viewpoint, they're the two key things we need to do with our life. And then our life becomes happier, becomes more peaceful, becomes purposeful, and so on. So, and then it said we set ourselves up for not only a good experience this life, good relationships, peaceful mind, but good karma. So in future lives, through generosity, you experience wealth. Through ethics, not harming others, you gain a human rebirth with good conditions, and so on. Through patience, you avoid angry and violent experiences in the future through karma. But also, step by step, you're nurturing your Buddha nature, your pure mind, and after good rebirth, you'll attain enlightenment. So all starting with this life, recognizing potential and recognizing what we can do with it. So that's I've talked too long, so I'll have to skip a bit. It talks about temporary value in this chapter, temporary value, ultimate value, and value in every instant. That in every instant of our life, even if we're in the middle of being upset and shouting at someone, we can make use of that next instant and practice patience. Or if if we're walking down the street, we can make use of the next instant and think, may that person be free of suffering. And then we've really used that next instant. So, that's the... So we'll do a little, just a short meditation on the optimal human rebirth. Perfect human rebirth that we have. So again, sitting in meditation posture and coming back to the breath, letting go of all thoughts and focus on the breath. And recognize how you've got what's called a perfect human rebirth. You are an extraordinary human being. And that your life is free of the restrictions, for example, that animals have. The restriction of, say, a cow in the field. The cow can't sit and contemplate its own mind. It can't listen to teachings. It doesn't have much capacity for reason. It can't improve its own situation. If it rains, it gets wet. If it's cold, it gets cold. If it's hot, it gets hot. And it's controlled by humans. If it's a beef cow, it will be killed after 18 months. Or if it's dairy, it will be milked until it's not producing enough. Then it will be killed. So recognize how your life is free of those restrictions. And free of living in an oppressive society. Where you can't choose what you do or what you study or what you say. And we're free of living in a time when there are no spiritual teachings. And humans are just driven by base instincts, like greed and war. Then rejoice in the qualities of your life. You've got a human form. With intelligence and good sense faculties. In a wonderful country. You've got pure, clean water, abundant food. And we're living in a time where we can access the Buddha's teachings. For example, this essence of the path to enlightenment by Geshe Loden. And we have the intelligence and interest in exploring the mind. So we can determine to make the most of this extraordinary opportunity of your life. And not get stuck in a destructive pattern or an unhappy pattern. We can determine to let the light of wisdom of all the Buddhas and the love and compassion of all the Bodhisattvas into our hearts and into our lives. We can determine to practice Dharma and support other living beings. And establish the causes of a happy, peaceful life. And the causes of step by step attaining enlightenment. You can establish that here and now. And finally, we can dedicate the merit or the positive energy of us examining our life and meditating on life towards the peace and happiness and well-being and ultimately enlightenment of oneself and all living beings without exception. Focus on that dedication. And we can finish the meditation. So, has anyone got any questions or any thoughts about life? Does it seem a heavy subject, or doesn't seem too heavy? No. Oh, good. Yeah. Yeah.
Big one.
Yeah. Yeah.
All those sorts of questions, Yeah, I studied psychology.
Right.
And I don't think anyone really has a clue.
Yeah.
Because, there's all these theories and stuff. I don't think any of us actually know what consciousness is.
I think so. Yeah.
I currently have a student who's writing an essay on consciousness.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
how do you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's not,
Yeah.
Also that never-ending mystery between what's the mind and what's the brain.
Yeah, the connection. What's the connection?
Medical science
Yeah,
isn't now able to analyse
yeah,
the brain fully, but they can't find the mind.
that's right. That's right. Yeah, you can't find consciousness, but you can see through imaging such correlation between, well, even with the gut now, apparently. You know, I was reading last week, if your biome in your gut has quite a strong influence on your mental processes. And even like they do poo transplants, and they found some people with sort of long-term depression lifting and things like this just with the gut biome. So they call it the second brain. But so very, very strong connections. Like Buddhism doesn't deny there's so many different factors that cause one moment of consciousness. But at the main cause, it has to be a previous moment of consciousness. You can't create consciousness from a gut or from a brain if there's no previous moment of consciousness. So that's the distinctive thing. But it's certainly not denying how important it is. You've got to look after your brain, don't you know? And so but it's a really interesting area. But like there's yogis who would spend 10 years, do a 10-year retreat on the nature of their own mind. So and no one can actually tell you what your mind is. The nearest, normally all we see is things appearing to mind, like my thoughts, my feelings, this sight. You don't actually see your mind itself. So there's this Mahamudra tradition where they focus just on the mind. What is the mind? And the nearest description conventionally in Buddhism is that it's something that's clear, that it's not obstructed from, it's not opaque. Like a thought can appear, a feeling can appear, it has clarity, and it has awareness or knowing. Those are really the only two features you can know. But when you actually look to see what is my mind, and Mahamudra gives you this sort of vast experience of the mind's like unlimited, unbounded. You normally think, I'm Tim, I'm like this, I'm quite small and like this. But if you meditate on the nature of your own mind, then it's like your mind's almost like the universe. It's no limit to the mind. So it's a very interesting area. And certainly, like I said, the qualities of enlightenment are limitless. You know, you can have compassion for all beings, heartfelt, 100% focus on all living beings, goodwill, kindness. There's no limit to to the qualities that you can develop. So it's a really vast path, you know. So when I was saying things like mindfulness, different things are taken by psychology, they're not a complete path. So you have to end up with this understanding of the nature of reality. It's called the emptiness nature. And you also have to have this unbounded, limitless goodwill for all beings. Then that's starting to get towards what your potential is. You know, at that point, that person's got no worries at all. They've gone beyond any suffering. They've gone beyond all our sort of trivial worries and upsets. If someone used the wrong tone, someone did this to me, someone cut me off in traffic, all the things that normally get us anxious, or, you know, someone threatened me. Someone like Geshe Loden, we lived with Geshe for 30 years or so, you know, and just, he was a different being. He absolutely was. He just wasn't ordinary. He didn't suffer. He never got bored, you know. Being with him was never boring. It's like you're in the presence of this extraordinary holy being. It's an incredible, and the Buddhist tradition was so, and particularly in Tibet, so rigorous and disciplined at this internal examination of the mind. That's the whole path. And we really, you know, like Geshe would go through at one point in his life, he walled himself upright, so he didn't spend time sleeping. And 3 years walled upright, where you just lean against the wall, have a little nap, and then you can get back to your studies and back to your meditation. Another 3-year period where only every second night you sleep, and you're debating philosophy in between. Like it's just on the nature of reality. So there were some extraordinary lamas came out of Tibet before 1959. It's really remarkable. But anyway, that's enough. So thanks everyone. The subject this week was life. Next week it's death. Which is, again, is said to be, you waste, from Buddhist viewpoint, if you don't think about death that day, you waste your day. You waste it. So,
You might think yourself, someone else told the story about mother passed away.
oh yeah.
And you asked, you don't seem to be breathing very much. He explained why, and
Yeah.
that, that he felt that he had done everything he could do for
Yeah.
himself.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah. Yeah.
fate that, now is when she goes.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so because he's done everything, and like that whole story,
Yeah.
has always really stayed with me.
Right, that's interesting. Yeah. Another one was after the invasion of Tibet. Then, 1959, the Dalai Lama Geshe, some of the Tibetans managed to flee across the Himalayas from Tibet to India, and they were starving. He said, Geshe said monks were eating their shoes, but he said they were still, like the country had just been devastated, and they'd all lost, but they were still managing. They weren't depressed. She used to say, being sad is a waste of time. Being depressed is a waste of time, and just accept no reality, accept reality and use it on the path to enlightenment. So, he said they were still managing, monks were still laughing, even though they lost everything. They're completely destitute. They had nothing. They were starving. They're freezing cold. And they'd lost their country, lost their family, lost their society, lost their monasteries, but they were still laughing. So that's pretty. Yeah, and he said when they came out of the snow and got to the down out of the snow line, everyone was grabbing grass, eating grass. They were starving to death. But so much comes from the mind. Even the worst conditions can be transformed. Okay, thanks everyone.
I know like that.